Welcome back. What if we told you our state lawmakers passed legislation making it legal for our Supreme Court to take all lawsuits filed against the state of Michigan away from the judges that usually handle them and handpick different judges to take them?
Well, that is exactly what happened. And in part one of our special report called Silent Justice, Joe Khalil tells us how that happened.
This is what making sausage looks like. It's not the prettiest sight.
This is a whole pork shoulder. We're not using trim, we're not using body parts, we're using fresh, clean meat.
Brandon Decker at Mertz Meats in Okemos says often sausage gets a bad rap. People think it's dirty. Decker says that may have been true in the past, but today, most sausage is made from very clean meat.
And we inspect it thoroughly. The pork that we put into the sausage is good enough to cut and eat like any other piece of pork.
What does sausage have to do with this story? We'll get to that soon. For now, let's transition from the kitchen to the courtroom.
Anytime someone sues the state, then it comes before the Court of Claims.
From tax cases to the governor's secret nerd fund, the Court of Claims handles a variety of lawsuits against the state. And since the 70s, those cases were brought exclusively before Ingham County judges like Rosemary Aquilina.
Most of the state agencies are in Lansing. That's their headquarters. If there's an action against them and you need people to testify or respond, they're right there.
Bruce Timmons worked on the legislation that brought the court to Lansing in the 70s. He says the move was practical, and you could make a strong argument that nobody knows Michigan judicial policy better than he. In fact, he wrote a lot of it.
I retired after 45 years with the legislature, and I started as an intern back in 67, 68, and I've dealt with court issues almost the entire time.
Fast forward 35 years to this past November. Our current legislature decided to undo Timmons' work.
When somebody sues the state of Michigan, why do the judges only come from Ingham County? This doesn't make any sense to me.
Senator Rick Jones says only 3% of the state elects Ingham County judges, and they shouldn't make rulings that affect the entire state.
So I came up with the idea of allowing the Supreme Court to select appeals court judges. 4 would be selected, and 1 at a time they would serve as the Court of Claims.
But Judge Aquilina cried foul. See, she and the 4 other judges who handle these cases are elected in a Democratic district. She and some Dems at the state capitol say Jones's bill was an attempt to take certain cases away from her court and hand-deliver them to the Supreme Court, which is controlled by Republicans.
They want to rig the courts, they want to stack the courts, they don't like what's coming out. It is sending a message to judges that if the legislature doesn't like what we do, they're going to take away our ability to rule.
Certainly there were some cases. I asked Jones if he was just trying to get favorable rulings for Republicans. He gave me a resounding
No. In fact, I've never been critical of the Court of Claims judges.
But even Bruce Timmons, a lifelong Republican himself, says he's not buying it.
I opened it up and read it, and the more I looked at it, I said, what is going on here?
Timmons testified against the bill before a House and Senate committee.
This strikes me as not right. I don't know of any instance in the time I've covered this issue, which is 45 years, where there's been action by legislature to take a case away from a judge and give it to another judge. And that's in effect what these are doing.
Despite the objections, the bill passed both chambers and the governor signed it in 2 weeks.
Well, again, I think it's an appropriate thing to do because it was really about getting representation across the entire state. It's broad-based representation, and I think it can be a good answer.
Obviously,
Timmons says he doesn't know exactly how it all came together, and frankly, he isn't sure he wants to.
no, there are 2 things you don't want to see being made, sausage and laws.
There you go.
In this instance, it's an indignity to the sausage.
We're using fresh, clean meat.
Which brings us back to Brandon. You guys have really cleaned up your act.
Absolutely.
If you ask Timmons, sausage makers are looking better every day.
Okay.
Certainly one way to put it,
Wow.
Joe. You said in the report that the Supreme Court can take cases away from the circuit court judges. Has that happened?
It started to happen now. We've seen that a little bit. And you heard Judge Aquilina talk there. She was so passionate about this because she told me one main reason that she was upset is a lot of these cases are midway through the case when they're transferred over. She said some judges were almost ready to make a ruling on a case in the circuit court, and it was just pulled from them and given to an appeals court judge.
Yeah, that's got to be difficult. Did other judges speak out against this law when it was being debated at the state capitol there, Joe?
Yeah, when I first did this story, I've covered this issue from the beginning when this happened. The bill passed in November. After I did one story about it, I was contacted by a source who gave me a number of emails. And in these emails, there were circuit court judges talking amongst each other. And in the emails, they were saying we should stay quiet about the Court of Claims bill, because if we do, the legislature will be more likely to approve raises for us. I was shocked to see that. It felt like some of these judges that we've elected have sort of sold out in a way, and we'll have more on that tonight in part 2 of this story at 11. We'll actually show you some of those emails that we got.
All right.
Joe,
Definitely
look forward to
interesting.
that.